And also another point which we didn't talk about very much, because in part what we're looking at here in terms of states is often a relation to spirit in first person. But there is, of course, spirit in second person and spirit in third person. And as soon as there's manifestation, you can use the Vedanta version, as soon as there's manifestation, it goes from nirguna, without qualities, to saguna, Brahman, spirit with qualities. The qualities that are usually given in places like Vedanta are being, consciousness, and bliss. And that's fine. And another good translation for bliss is happiness or joy, just so you know how to relate to it. Some people don't feel they have bliss in their lives unless they time their drugs wrong. But that's like, wow, bliss is... But happiness or joy is just very, very close. If you just feel that inherent joy of living, that inherent just happiness of living, that's great. But another way to look at it is as well as through perspectives. First person, second person, and third person. And so third person is when we think of like a great web of life, or even the Dharma Dhatu, or even Dharma as its or suchness. And then there's second person, where you think of spirit in second person. And in Vajrayana, of course, that's in a couple of places. One, it's certainly at some point you are invited to see your guru as spirit in second person, and in the times we were talking about when you relate to them that way. But also even in certain meditation practices, you simply see or visualize, although these are held to be real entities and not merely archetypes, you'll see any number of these representations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that are there facing you, and you are in effect talking to them, getting their blessing. That's spirit in second person. And in spirit in first person is when, right at that interesting moment of sort of clicking, these spirits in second person turn around, sit on your head, come down to your heart, and you're it. That's spirit in first person. So we've been looking at that. But spirit in second person is very, very important. It's emphasized in Vajrayana. It's not as well emphasized in the world's other traditions that tend to just pick one or the other. But since this is still looking at states primarily, it's always a good reminder that spirit in second person elicits emotions of gratitude and blessedness and devotion and love. And we can all see each other as spirit in second person too. So there's a very real point where you have to just acknowledge teachers as teachers. And at some point they see more than you and they know more than you. Just like if you go to a mathematics teacher in college and you're taking a course in calculus, there is a time when that person knows more. But if you study it and study it and study it and get your own PhD, then you know as much as the teacher. The whole point of that is to erase the difference between the two. Green tries to erase the difference between the two on the first day of class. Bad, very bad. But a year or two or three later, yes, the differences are supposed to erase. And you are, of course, to become your own guru by recognizing your primordial, naked awareness as the inner guru. So it's perfectly appropriate at this time also to remind ourselves that we are manifesting as spirit in all three dimensions, and we can see the world in all three dimensions. So it's a very appropriate time to express just extraordinary gratitude and devotion to all of you for coming and doing this and pioneering something that once you see it, you can't go back. That you cannot get that toothpaste back in that tube. It's just not going to happen. And increasingly, though, that spreads out through the culture at large. And people are going to be looking at the teachers who first did this and really figured out the details of it. Not just the general framework, but the actual, this is the nitty-gritty of what you do to practice it. And the people doing that are sitting right over there. And they deserve our gratitude and devotion. And so altogether, I think this is just a really extraordinary time. And what we're doing is an extraordinary adventure in consciousness. And that adventure never, ever stops. That's the extraordinary thing. But to be part of it is something that you have every right to feel, and these emotions come together, so they're paradoxical, but they're not contradictions. You have every right to feel an enormous amount of pride and a staggering amount of humility. And you can go back and forth, it's allowed. But I also want you to be able to feel an enormous pride. As a lot of you know who practice Vajrayana, in the beginning stages of working with yidam or working with visualization yoga, you have to watch both your capacity to hold the concentration of the image, shamatha, and you have to be able to see its transparency, which is vipassana, but also means emptiness. So you're getting both emptiness and form in this one single practice. You're getting the non-duality of it. And one of the things that you're supposed to hold and be able to develop is divine pride. And learning to distinguish that from egoic pride is extremely important. And once you actually figure that out, that's graduation. It's one of those that you're just learning about that almost forever. But don't ever let a green culture give you so much carpet burn that you feel you have to stop. And don't ever let green culture take away divine pride from what you're doing. Keep absolute humility as well. But you also have to find an area, an aspect, a dimension of you that is 100% divine and proud of it. The pride being you can take your seat and hold it. So that's very, very important as well.